I was 17 years old when my parents sat me down at the kitchen table and told me they'd given my college fund to my sister. Not our college fund, my college fund. The one my grandparents had set up for me when I was born. The one that had my name, Emma Rose Mitchell, printed on every single quarterly statement that arrived in the mail for 17 years. $53,412. Gone. My mother couldn't even look at me when she said it. She just kept stirring her coffee, clockwise, 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 like if she stirred long enough, the words would dissolve, and she wouldn't have to watch my face crumble. My father did the talking. "Sweetie," he said, and I'll never forget how his voice had that practiced gentleness, like he'd rehearsed this in the shower. "We know this isn't what you were expecting to hear, but Madison needs this opportunity more than you do right now." Madison, my golden child sister, 2 years older, infinitely prettier, and, according to every adult who'd ever met us, the one with real potential. She was sitting right there, across from me, picking at her French manicure, and when I looked at her, really looked, searching for even a flicker of guilt or gratitude or something, she just shrugged. One shoulder, like I'd asked her to pass the salt and she couldn't be bothered. "It's for Juilliard, Em," she said, not even trying to hide the smugness in her voice. "I got in, full arts program. This is like my destiny." Destiny. I wanted to flip the table. I wanted to scream that Juilliard had a 70% dropout rate for dancers, that Madison had quit every single commitment she'd ever made. Piano lessons, debate team, her high school musical because the director didn't understand her vision. But the words stuck in my throat like glass shards. Because I already knew. In that moment, staring at my parents' guilty faces and my sister's indifferent eyes, I understood with brutal, crystalline clarity that I had never been the chosen one in this family. I was the safety net, the backup plan, the invisible daughter who got good grades and didn't cause problems, so she didn't need the attention, the money, or the chances. My dad reached across the table and patted my hand. "You'll figure it out, sweetheart, you always do. Maybe community college for a year or two. You're so resourceful." Resourceful. That was the word that broke me. Not resilient, not brilliant, not worthy of the same opportunities as your other daughter. Resourceful, like I was a Swiss Army knife they kept in the junk drawer for emergencies. I didn't cry, not then. I just nodded, excused myself, walked upstairs to my bedroom, and quietly closed the door. Then I sat on the edge of my bed, the one with the thrift store quilt, and the desk I'd built myself from IKEA parts because Madison got the nice furniture for her room. And I made myself a promise. I promised that I would never, ever ask them for anything again. And I promised that one day, somehow, some way, they would regret choosing her over me. I just didn't know yet how satisfying that regret would taste. If you've ever been the forgotten child, the overlooked sibling, or the person everyone underestimated, this story is for you. Hit that like button right now, subscribe if you haven't already, and buckle up, because what I did next changed everything, not just for me, for all of them. Let me paint you a picture of my childhood, because context matters. Madison was born beautiful. I'm not being dramatic. She literally came out looking like a Gerber baby. Huge blue eyes, perfect Cupid's bow lips, blonde ringlets that our mother would spend hours styling every single morning before preschool. I was born 2 years later, looking like a regular baby. Brown hair that frizzed in humidity, eyes that were pretty when you smiled, but otherwise forgettable. Knobby knees, a gap between my front teeth that I didn't grow into until I was 14. From day one, Madison was the star. Dance recitals, beauty pageants. Every family photo was arranged so she was front and centre, and I was just there, off to the side, sometimes half out of frame. And the thing is, I didn't even mind at first. When you're little, you don't question the hierarchy. You just accept that some people are meant to shine and others are meant to hold the flashlight. I was good at holding the flashlight. I helped Madison memorize her lines for school plays. I covered for her when she snuck out to meet boys. When she forgot to do her homework, I let her copy mine. And when we both got caught, I took the blame because Mom said Madison was too sensitive for punishment. I made myself useful, valuable, indispensable. I thought that if I could just be helpful enough, eventually they'd see me the way they saw her. They never did. By the time high school rolled around, the pattern was set in stone. Madison got the lead in every musical, the convertible for her 16th birthday, the bedroom with the private bathroom. I got a used Honda Civic with a broken AC, a bedroom the size of a closet, and a reputation as Madison Mitchell's little sister. You know, the smart one. The smart one. That was my role. The boring, dependable smart one who didn't need trophies or validation because she was naturally self-sufficient. But here's what nobody tells you about being the invisible child. You start to internalize it. You start to believe that love is something you have to earn through perfect grades and zero complaints. You start to think that if you just try hard enough, sacrifice enough, disappear enough, maybe, they'll finally see you. So when my parents told me they were giving my college fund to Madison, it wasn't a surprise. It was a confirmation, a signed notarized document that said, "You were right all along. You don't matter as much." The night after the kitchen table ambush, I did something I hadn't done in years. I pulled out the box from under my bed, the one where I kept every birthday card, every report card, every single scrap of paper that proved I existed in this family, and I went through it. Madison's 16th birthday, a 3-tiered cake, a catered party, 200 guests, and a professionally filmed video montage. My 16th birthday, dinner at Olive Garden with a store-bought cake. Madison didn't even show up because she had dance practice. Madison's high school graduation, a $5,000 trip to Europe as a celebration of her potential. My high school graduation, a $50 gift card to Target, and a speech from Dad about the value of hard work. I sat there on my bedroom floor, surrounded by years of evidence, and something inside me just snapped. Not in a dramatic, explosive way, in a quiet, cold, irreversible way. The kind of snap where the anger doesn't make you scream, it makes you plan. I opened my laptop, I created a spreadsheet, and I started calculating exactly how much money my parents had spent on Madison versus me over the past 17 years. Dance lessons, pageant fees, private acting coaches, costumes, the car, the birthday parties, the trips, the Juilliard application fees. It took me 4 hours. When I was done, the number at the bottom of the screen made my stomach turn. $247,000, $250,000 poured into Madison's dreams. Meanwhile, I'd gotten exactly one thing, a college fund that was supposed to be untouchable, the fund my grandparents had set up because they knew, even before they died, that my parents would play favourites. And now that was gone too. I printed the spreadsheet, I tucked it into my desk drawer, and I went to bed with one thought circling my brain like a vulture. They're going to regret this. Remember how my dad called me resourceful? He had no idea how right he was. See, while Madison was off practicing her pirouettes and posting Instagram selfies with captions like Juilliard bound, I was working 3 jobs. I waitressed breakfast shifts at a diner where truckers tipped in crumpled 5s and called me sweetheart. I tutored rich kids in SAT prep for $40 an hour, cash under the table, and I freelanced as a graphic designer on Fiverr, churning out logos and Instagram templates at 2 a.m. Because insomnia is free, and sleep is for people who have the luxury of family support. I saved every single penny. I lived on ramen, black coffee, and spite. And in August, 3 months after my high school graduation, I walked into the admissions office at the State University with $12,000 in cash, a 4.2 GPA, and a full scholarship application that I'd spent 6 weeks perfecting. I got in, full ride. Academic scholarship, need-based grants, work-study program, the whole 9 yards. I didn't tell my parents until the day I moved into the dorms. I just packed my car, left a note on the kitchen counter that said, "Figured it out. Don't wait up," and drove away. My mum called me 17 times that day. I didn't answer. Madison texted me once. "Wow, drama much?" I blocked her number. College was supposed to be my fresh start, and it was. But not in the way you'd think. I didn't party. I didn't join clubs. I didn't make lifelong friends or have a wild, transformative freshman year. I worked. I took 18 credit hours per semester, maxed out my course load so I could graduate early. I kept my tutoring gigs and added 2 more freelance clients. And then, during the spring semester of my freshman year, something happened that changed everything. One of my tutoring clients, a 17-year-old kid named Marcus, whose parents were dropping $30,000 a year on test prep, asked me a question that seemed simple at the time. "Why don't you just, make an app for this? It'd be way easier than doing Zoom calls." An app. I'd never coded in my life, but I was resourceful, remember? I taught myself Python in 3 weeks using YouTube tutorials and library books. Then I taught myself JavaScript, then React, then UI/UX design. By the end of my sophomore year, I'd built a prototype, an adaptive SAT prep app that used AI to personalize practice questions based on the user's weaknesses. I called it Score Boost. I launched it with $800 in Facebook ads, a Wix website I made in a weekend, and 0 expectations. It made $3,000 in the first month, $12,000 in the second. By month 6, I had 10,000 users and a subscription model that was pulling in $40,000 a month in revenue. I dropped out of college halfway through my junior year. Not because I was failing, because I was running a company. You know what's funny? For 3 years my parents didn't know. They didn't ask how I was paying for school. They didn't ask where I was living after I quietly moved off campus into a tiny apartment in sophomore year. They didn't ask how I was surviving because in their minds I was resourceful, which apparently meant I didn't require parental concern. Meanwhile, Madison, she dropped out of Juilliard after 1 semester. Turns out destiny is hard when you're competing against people who've been training since they were 4 and you've been coasting on natural talent your whole life. She moved back home. My parents welcomed her with open arms, redecorated her bedroom, and started funding her next dream, a lifestyle blog. She called it Golden Hour with Maddie. It had 300 followers, most of them were bots. I know because I checked. I checked obsessively, actually, the same way you can't help poking at a bruise to see if it still hurts. And every time I saw my parents commenting on her posts, "So proud of you, sweetheart. You're glowing, honey." The bruise throbbed a little deeper, but I didn't reach out. I didn't call. I let the silence stretch until it became a canyon. 4 years after I left, Scoreboost sold to a major education tech company. The acquisition price? $2.1 million. I was 25 years old. I owned a condo. I had a financial advisor. I drove a Tesla Model 3, not because I cared about cars, but because I wanted something that looked like success. And I still hadn't spoken to my parents in 4 years. They didn't even know I'd dropped out of college. But Madison knew I'd done something with computers because of course she did. She'd tried to hit me up on LinkedIn. Her message? "Hey, sis, long time no talk. I'm working on a new business venture and could really use someone with your tech skills. Let's collab." I left it on read. Then, one Tuesday in October, my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something, maybe curiosity, maybe fate, made me pick up. It was my dad. His voice sounded smaller than I remembered. "Emma, sweetheart, it's Dad." I didn't say anything. I know it's been a long time, and I know we didn't leave things well, but your mum and we'd really love to see you, maybe dinner, this weekend. I should have said no, I should have hung up, but the part of me that was still that 17-year-old girl sitting at the kitchen table, the part that had spent years waiting for them to notice I was gone. That part whispered, "Make them see what they lost." So I said yes. The restaurant was one of those trendy farm-to-table places where everything costs $40 and comes on a slate instead of a plate. My parents were already seated when I arrived. My mum's hair had gone silver at the temples. My dad had developed a paunch that strained against his button-down. They looked older, smaller. Madison wasn't there. "She's busy with a brand deal," my mum explained, like I'd asked. "Some skincare company wants her to be an ambassador. Isn't that exciting?" I smiled thinly. We ordered. We made small talk. My dad asked what I'd been up to, and I kept it vague. Working in tech. Doing well. My mum's eyes lingered on my clothes, a cashmere sweater, tailored trousers, leather boots that cost more than her monthly grocery bill, but she didn't ask. Then, halfway through the entrees, my dad cleared his throat. "So, Emma, the reason we wanted to see you—" "Here it comes. Is that we're in a bit of a bind, financially." I took a slow sip of water. "Your mum's company downsized. I'm still working, but with Madison living at home and her ventures needing support, things are tight. We were hoping. You want money." It wasn't a question. My dad's face flushed. "We wouldn't ask if it weren't serious." My mum reached across the table, her eyes shimmering with practiced tears. "You've always been so independent, sweetheart, so capable. We just thought, maybe you could help. Family helps family." Family helps family. I set down my fork. I opened my purse, pulled out a folded piece of paper and slid it across the table. "What's this?" my dad asked. "Open it." He did. It was the spreadsheet, the one I'd made 4 years ago. $247,000 spent on Madison. $53,412 stolen from me. "What I'm capable of," I said quietly, "is math." My mother's tears dried up instantly. "Emma, that's not fair." "You're right, it's not fair, but it's accurate." I leaned back in my chair. "I sold my company last year for $2.1 million. After taxes, fees and investments, I'm worth about $1.4 million. So yes, I could help you." I watched hope flicker in their eyes. Then I crushed it. "But I won't." My father's face went red. "Emma, don't be childish." "Childish?" I laughed, and it came out sharp. "Dad, I worked 3 jobs in high school because you spent my college fund on Madison's destiny. I taught myself to code at 19 because I had no other choice. I built a company from nothing while you didn't even notice I'd left." "We thought you were fine," my mum protested. "Because I didn't complain, because I was resourceful. Right, Dad?" He flinched. I wasn't done. "You want to know what I did after you gave away my future. I created a new one, alone. And now you want me to hand you a piece of it because Madison's Instagram career didn't pan out and you didn't plan for retirement. She's your sister. She's a stranger who stole from me and never apologized." Silence. My mother was crying for real now. Wet, ugly sobs that smeared her mascara. My dad just stared at the spreadsheet like it was a bomb. I stood up. I dropped $300 bills on the table, enough to cover the meal and tip generously because I wasn't cruel. Just done. "Here's what's going to happen," I said. "You're going to go home, you're going to sit Madison down, and you're going to tell her that the golden child experiment failed, and now all 3 of you get to be resourceful together." I slung my purse over my shoulder. "Don't call me again." I walked out into the cold October night, and for the first time in 4 years, I felt light, free, whole. They didn't call, not that week, not that month. But Madison did. 3 weeks after the dinner, she sent me an Instagram DM, because of course she did. "You're a selfish bitch. Mum's in therapy because of you. Hope you're happy." I took a screenshot. I framed it. I hung it in my home office. 6 months later, I started a scholarship fund for first-generation college students who came from families that didn't see their potential. I called it the Resourceful Futures Foundation. The first recipient was a girl from Nevada whose parents had spent her college savings on her brother's wedding. She cried when I told her. I didn't. I just smiled and said, "You're going to do amazing things." Because she would, and because I knew, down to my bones, that the best revenge isn't cruelty. It's success they can't ignore, and generosity they'll never deserve. Here's the thing about being underestimated. It either breaks you or it builds you. For 17 years, my family saw me as the backup plan, the safety net, the one who'd figure it out. And they were right. I did figure it out. Just not in the way they expected, and definitely not for their benefit. Some people spend their whole lives waiting for an apology that'll never come. I spent mine proving I never needed one. So if this story hit home, if you've ever been the resourceful one, the forgotten one, the one who had to build their own empire because nobody handed you the keys, smash that like button. Drop a comment and tell me, what's the most satisfying comeback you've ever witnessed? Or better yet, what's your comeback story? And of course, subscribe if you haven't already, because we've got more stories of people who turned pain into power, betrayal into victory, and being underestimated into the ultimate glow-up. Thanks for listening, and remember, the best revenge is a life they'll never understand.